Art is one of those subjects that a lot of homeschooling parents struggle with and don't know where to start. Not all of us are gifted artistically, and so we have a hard time figuring out what exactly we have them do. You know, you don't want to do coloring books all the way through high school, but I have found a really great and amazing resource that has helped my kids broaden their artistic abilities and has introduced a lot of concepts to them, and I'm going to share that with you here today. Before we get started, welcome to my channel. I am Leigh, and right here is where I share all the things about homeschooling, my homeschool journey, some tips and tricks, and just all the things that I have learned over the years from 10 years of homeschooling my 3 children, and I share that right here along with just some real life and practical ways to tackle and to handle and to do homeschool within your home. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, but let's get started here today now. I began homeschooling when my oldest daughter was in 3rd grade, and I felt completely inept. I had no idea how to do art. The state that we lived in at that time did require an elective of art, and I didn't know what to do. Now, the thing is, my husband is really artistic. He can do most anything, but he has a very select area that he's really good in. So all of my kids would see him practice his artwork and stuff. That was just it is just a way that he enjoys relaxing. So they kind of caught on to the art bug a little bit, and we always had art supplies in our home. But I really wanted to add something a bit more formal. I wanted to introduce them to other areas of art, sculpture, and also to learn some history about art and just different techniques. Learn how to use, you know, different types of mediums. And so when I went to my first homeschool convention, I came across a booth, and I am so thankful. I really believe that God led me to that booth because it is something that we have used in our homeschool for so many years, and my kids have all really loved it. Let's just say that some have loved it more than others, but still, it was a great way for them to explore and become a little bit more creative with their artistic abilities. Now, at this point, they're all a bit older, and they all have their preferences, but I still have them do some of this curriculum too, just to add a little bit, just to kind of have them step a little bit outside of where they might feel comfortable with their art so that they can try new things. So let me show you what I have been using for 10 years in my homeschool to teach my kids how to do art. I'm going to start this with telling you that I have 5. I have 5 of these different books, and we have in some years used the entire year, and we have gone through one of the books. Sometimes we've had to kind of spread it out because maybe we were doing a bit more, you know, other kind of work and we didn't have the time for it, and I've taken maybe 2 years to do one of the books. Okay, so here it is. It is called Artistic Pursuits, and it is by Brenda Ellis. I will put a link in the description below so that you can, you know, get to the different ones. This one is specifically for kindergarten through 3rd grade, and it is book 1. I have book 1, and I also have book 3 for kindergarten through 3rd grade. So if you've maybe followed me on Instagram or something, you might know that I don't have kindergarten through 3rd graders. My kids are all older. My youngest is actually in middle school. I have a high schooler, and one has graduated. So why in the world would I have these books still? Because I love them so much. I honestly have held on to them because I just really like them. Let's just talk a little bit about, you know, the grade levels. Now, they do have grades K through 3rd grade here on this. But when you go in there, when it comes to art, there's just you could do the same lesson with a 1st grader that you do with an older child and give them the same supplies. You might need to, you know, make that lesson a little bit more simple for the, you know, for the younger child than the older child, but you're going to they're still going to be creative. There's going to be an artistic, you know, knowledge that is gained. It's just that the older child is gonna do it differently. You know, they have the maturity, they have the fine motor skills, they're able to do it differently. So these books can actually be incorporated for various ages. I have done that. I have done one lesson for all 3 of my kids, even though there's 5 years difference between the youngest and the oldest. And it just was, they just had their own interpretation to it. Yes, the 1st grader is gonna have, you know, a 1st grader art sculpture, but the 5th grader is going to have a 5th grader art sculpture. And so that's the really neat thing. So before I show you specifically like inside the books, let me show you the other ones that I have as well. So I have the book 1 and 3 of kindergarten through 3rd grade. Then I have for the elementary 4th through 5th grade, this is book 1. And then I have book 2. And then I have middle school for grades 6 through 8. Now, on the inside of each of these books is going to list all of the materials that you're going to need. And some of them have a specific focus on them. So this one right here, the elementary 4 to 5 book 2, has a focus on color and composition. Some of them that we have done are more for drawing and pencils, and so you really only need maybe charcoal pencils and good charcoal pencil paper, things that you can just pick up. I just would get most of my supplies over at Michael's. Just was really easy, use a coupon and get something for a little bit off. But some of them have a direct focus, and some of the books will do all kinds of things, where maybe you'll do some drawing with just some charcoal pencils. You'll get to maybe watercolor pencils. You might get to paints and sculpture, like all those kinds of things. So take a look, at maybe where your kids are. If maybe you, the older ones, they tend to focus a bit more on one thing, and the younger kids are going to give them exposure to all kinds of things. So let's take a look inside these books. So the first page is going to have a table of contents, and it's going to tell you a little bit about what's going to happen in each of the different lessons. The next page is going to have all the materials that you need. Now, I know that it can seem overwhelming when you first look at this. However, understand that you're not going to need all of these in the very beginning. If you want to spread out all the purchasing of your items, that's fine. You can do that, because at the beginning of every lesson, we'll tell you exactly what you need for that lesson. If maybe you want to do one lesson a week and you want to buy supplies for a couple of months ahead of time, go ahead and just take a look to see what all will be needed during those lessons and go ahead and get those supplies. Some of them will need most of the supplies in the beginning, and you'll just continue to use those same supplies throughout the course of the book. The page after the materials list is teaching art in historical context, going to give some information to you as the parent, as the teacher. Each of the lessons is going to teach you a bit about the time period that the artwork was done in, and then they'll also have a specific piece of artwork that you will look at. It will explain, who the artist was. You'll talk about the historical time period, and there's some questions in the lesson that will get you and your kids kind of talking about what you are seeing in this piece of artwork. Then the next page is going to give the project. It's going to tell you what materials you need. It's going to outline it and tell you exactly how to do it. A lot of the books will tell you different techniques of how to hold the brush, how to hold the pencil, what angle and how much pressure to put on, and even when it comes to charcoal pencils, different levels of them and all those things. So I could probably sit here all day and show you through all of the books. And if you have any specific questions about any certain ones, let me know. But we have just had so much fun learning different types and techniques of artwork. Okay, so here's a funny story. One of them, I had, a materials list, and I did not know how to pronounce the one word. And so I went over to Michael's and I was like, do you have any of this? And I brought the book with me, showed them, and they said gouache paint. And I was like, okay, gouache paint. So that day, I, as a homeschool mom, learned something else. And so my kids and I kind of laugh about that, about how I didn't even know how to pronounce gouache paint, and now I know what it is. I know about all these different painting things. Now I'm going to tell you, I am not naturally artistic in really any kind of way. I enjoy decorating and doing DIYs and that kind of stuff. I can think that way, but I don't necessarily think in what would be a traditional artistic sense. So these books have been a real lifesaver for me. There are plenty more than just what I have, but we've just really enjoyed going through, learning, especially the sculpture ones. I still have some of the sculptures that my kids did years ago. I just have them displayed in one of our in our dining room, but it's just been really neat. So the oldest one that I got was for middle school, for 6 to 8, and I've even continued and used this into high school because it's just, there's so much information in this. My kids are really into pencils and paper and drawing, and this just really helped them grow in their different abilities. And the neat thing is that since I told you earlier that my husband James is artistic, they were able then to share with him the different things that they had learned all about art. So that was really neat to see them bond over that as well. And it really was fun when they were all in elementary school and we would do the same projects, and it was really cool to be able to see how they just interpreted things differently. Some would, the sculpture things, we actually had a lot of fun with those. But it just added so much. My kids always look forward to when we were doing art. So if you are struggling with what to do with art with my homeschooler, I highly suggest the Artistic Pursuits books. Again, they go elementary school, middle school, high school, and you'll have them drawing. You'll be having, having them painting with different types of paints even, and doing sculpture. It just is made a lot fun. And for me, it took a lot of the stress and the pressure off of me to try to come up with art projects. I didn't have to Google. I didn't have to go onto Pinterest. Everything was just in there tells me exactly what to do. So I hope this has been helpful for you and that it will give you some confidence when it comes to teaching art to your children in a way that you feel is gives them just like a good, like meaty kind of grip on it instead of just a bunch of little fluff stuff. You can really dig in deep and let your kids just creativity explode. If you're new here, I'd love to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.